so record on this computer.
Sounds good.
I wanted to really kind of start over from socialization. I'm not going over socialization, but socialization, deviance, race, class, all of the inequalities and intersectionality.
Right.
But I want to start off first with a brief discussion on socialization and what it is, then jump to the inequalities. So this can actually go like a conversation. In fact, I'm kind of glad that this is just two of us right now.
Yeah.
So we can actually like just talk about this, because I did see also your video on the James Byrd case. So
right.
So like it's just going, so we're just gonna pretend like we're talking. We are talking, but
that's perfectly fine. Let me just pull up my notes, because I take all of my notes. Like when I read through the chapters, I have a slideshow of all the notes compiled on that. Nice. And there's like, I'm at like 139 slides right now with all the chapters and everything.
It's so crazy. Like I think I gave you guys these slides I think I did a Dropbox and I gave you guys some, the PowerPoint slides.
Yes, you did. I just, personally, I think that it's better if I were to be putting it in my own words.
Definitely.
To my understanding.
Definitely. That's how I always was too.
Yeah.
So in fact, I'm still like that notebook type of person where if I'm sitting in actual class or some kind of lecture, I have to, no matter if they give me slides, I have to take my own notes.
Right. Yeah, I totally agree with you, especially because this is going to be very important information as for when I take the MCAT.
Yeah.
I know sociology has significant applications for the MCAT with different ideas, I guess you could say. So.
When you have those up, just let me know.
What was that? Sorry.
When you have them up, just let me know.
Yeah, I have the notes. What was the chapter that we were referring to that we're going to start discussing?
So we're going to actually go back and start with socialization.
Socialization.
So that is chapter, oh God.
Chapter 7?
Give me a moment too.
No,
I don't even think I have mine up. Hold on. Socialization.
Social stratification is chapter 9.
Yeah. So it should be like 5 or 6.
Oh, okay. Yes. Yep. Chapter 5.
Okay. Can you still see me? Because I can't see you.
Yes, I can still see you.
Oh, I'm not sharing my screen. Okay. Here. Okay. So I'm not going to even bother putting up my social strat notes just yet, just because I just want us to just briefly go over socialization, right? When we're talking about socialization, we're simply just talking about how people are taught to learn how to function normally in society, in certain spaces, etc. So we're not necessarily talking about people socializing, which a lot of people confuse it with, but we're talking about how do we become men? How do we become women? How do we become, citizens of this world?
Right. It's like the idea of the incorporation of roles or identity within a society.
Yes, exactly. Okay. So we learn those through all of our institutions, again, the agents of socialization. So we learn it from our family, we learn it from education, we learn it from religious institutions, the workplace, etc. We have that, right?
Yes.
Okay. And we learn these things from the time that we are born up into some even prior. So there's evidence that we're learning it like while we're in our mother's wombs. And we're continuing to be socialized even as adults. There isn't evidence that this ever stops, okay? Because your chapter talks about how, when you get married, you have to go through a different re-socialization process. When you start a new job in a completely new field, you start a new socialization process. You learn these norms in these new spaces. Sound good?
This reminds me of a little conversation I was having with my buddy. We were discussing the aftermath impacts of the whole COVID-19 quarantine thing.
Oh gosh. And that's what we're going to discuss. That's why I want people on this today, because there's a lot of things that happened within these past 2 weeks, and I'm just kind of like, we got to get
it's a little bit too dynamic to
No, go ahead, tell me.
But So we were discussing the social implications of what happens when there's a lack of socialization, especially between the ages of like 3 and 6. Especially when there's like for children who are at the developmental stage where they would be attending like preschool.
Yeah.
And we were discussing what will come of them in the future when they don't have those like years of experience to be socialized.
Yeah. It's crazy. I was having a discussion with one of my psych students, I believe on Monday or Tuesday. But even like a year isn't a lot. It is a lot, but then it's not a lot. But a year under quarantine with the social distancing, with these, honestly, I've had little actual face-to-face communication with people for a whole year.
Yeah.
And I know what that's done to me. Like I know what that's done to me, and it's not good, you know? And it's just kind of like, I know faculty have been talking about like, what are these students like? They're coming in the fall. Some of them are really dying to come in, but this whole year that we've had off has like changed people, you know, and we don't know how they've changed, you know, and I think that's part of the fear of some faculty coming in. I could care less. Like, I just need to like talk and be around people.
Yeah.
But one of the things is just kind of like, in sociology, like things don't happen overnight. But if you read the Deviance chapter, you know, like things can change overnight. You just need something to drastically change social norms overnight, like Emile Durkheim says. An earthquake could change things significantly. A flood could change things significantly. An economic collapse. So we went through a pandemic and it's changed people, you know? So I don't know. Like I'm talking to you right now, and you're very normal. Like,
I don't know. I think normal is a little bit subjective. I don't think
it is. It definitely is. But who knows? Like I talked to a whole bunch of students on Zoom, but who knows how we really are going to act when we meet each other in the fall?
Yeah, I think that this time, like being like isolated in quarantine has given us some time to look inward rather than like outward. So it's definitely given. It could be turned into two different ways. It could be turned in a positive way as to say it's like given people time to go with self-discovery, like discover who they are. Because I know socialization can kind of make our identity form with others. Like our identity will be associated with what other people do, as opposed to finding out what we truly want to, like what we truly enjoy and what our genuine identity is. But then again, on the other hand, I think the lack of socialization, I think there should be a balance between like positive and negative socialization.
I'm hoping so. Because again, another reason why I'm doing this is I have a Flipgrid that's already up there on the Flipgrid site. And it's just like, I want to make sure people listen to this, whether it be after or they pop into this before they look at that Flipgrid. Because it is on the shooting spree in Atlanta. And I just want us to actually like talk about race and gender and all of that before we even get into that. So
is there going to be another Flipgrid aside from
yeah. So there's actually a couple already up there. It's just I wanted to have this lecture first.
Okay, all right. That's probably a good idea.
Yeah. So you and I understand what socialization is. Okay.
Yes, I believe I understand what socialization is.
Okay, so I want to get right into the types of inequality that we have in sociology, and that is, you know, the race, the class, the gender, the age, etc. The first thing that I want us to go over is a social construct, and honestly, like this word has been thrown out a lot, and I hope people know what a social construct is, but it's just again, systems of inequality are social constructs. Social constructs are human created. They're words that are created by us. That means we can change those definitions as well.
So like gender would be considered a social construct because creates like this connotation as to what qualities or characteristics are associated with a certain sex?
Yes.
Okay.
So gender's a construct, race is a construct, etc.
Okay.
Okay. So also these constructs are based on power. So one segment of society always has the ability to set the standards of what is good or what is not within a system. Okay. So also within these constructs, it's not that, people are necessary. It's not like I'm going to go out and be like, Hispanics are bad, but we do have these ways of ordering people in our head in terms of a hierarchy.
Yeah, so like whether we know it or not, we'll subconsciously categorize people into groups.
Yes.
There was a TV show that I watched that made fun of this idea. Have you ever heard of the TV show Red versus Blue?
No.
By any chance? It's a very, I would say that it's executed in a very in a very poor way. However, it basically gives light upon the idea how unreasonable it is for us to categorize people as like black or white. So they basically, the concept with red versus blue is there's this little village that holds blue people and this little village that holds red people.
Yeah.
And the only reason why the blue people are blue is because the red people are red, and they just hate each other for no reason. And then
it's called Red versus Blue.
Yeah. I think it's really funny because they have a very I forget what it's called. They have a very weird approach with their humor, and I enjoy it. It's like played by Halo characters.
Okay.
Yeah. I recommend checking it out. It may be able to provide some insight from like this us versus them dilemma that keeps arising in society.
Definitely. And there's a lot of like, one of the things that I grew up on was the original like X-Men.
Yeah.
So definitely when I was watching these cartoon shows, like as a kid, I would have never, ever thought, like gone beyond thinking, oh my gosh, like the mutants are like, everybody's always trying to get the mutants. But if you actually I would encourage people after taking a sociology class, go back to X-Men, like go back. And it's exactly like what we're going through today. It's a weird way of seeing it, but it's definitely, X-Men is definitely historical, sociological. Just replace the mutants and the people with racial groups.
And I can definitely see some parallels. I don't know too much about X-Men. I haven't watched it.
Yeah.
But I do know some of the superheroes with them.
Well, just replace the mutants, all the mutants, with like an oppressed group. Just replace them with any oppressed group. And you'll definitely like see some
parallels with society,
like revolt, and yeah.
That's interesting. I'll have to check it out.
It's really like, I go back on shows, like I went back on a whole bunch of shows after I got my master's, and I was like, oh my gosh, like sociology ruined the kumbaya thing. Huh?
You look through like a whole different lens.
Like, oh yeah, like I came out and I was like, wow, the world is really a bad place.
Yeah.
So when it comes to social constructs, they're always based on power, one segment. And in sociology, that one segment, like, will never actually be that one segment, but it's those individuals who have, again, power economically, politically, and socially. Like they're that 1%, that elite 1%. So I'm not talking about millionaires. Those aren't the people like, I feel like anybody could be a millionaire. Like if
they work hard.
Really hard.
Yeah, if they work hard enough. I think that given our current day society, we there's opportunity to.
There is. So I don't want to say it like nonchalantly, like anyone can be a millionaire, but there is ways. There are ways. Yeah. So I'm not talking about people who are millionaires, right? I'm talking about that elite 1%. Like literally they have the power economically, socially, and politically to make moves that change our lives, like people's lives,
like Elon
that
Musk.
have money to change our lives, to end our lives, etc.
Yeah, like the multi-billionaires, like
Yeah.
Elon Musk.
Yeah. You know, like Puerto Rico went through several hurricanes in the last year. Like these people could literally tear Puerto Rico down and build it right back up without it hurting their pockets.
And they don't choose to, which frustrates me.
Yeah.
There's of a situation. I don't know. I think it might have been Carlos Slim. There was this individual in Mexico
Mhm.
who monopolized the whole electrical grid. So
Okay.
he had I don't know how he got away with it, but he had like control of 90% of the electricity in Mexico. And
Yeah.
he at one point in time, he was the world's richest man because of the amount of sheer power he had over like millions of lives. And it was crazy. I was like, how does someone get to that level?
It's
I,
disgusting.
yeah.
It's disgusting. But honestly, I can see how people like, I hate saying it, but we keep especially in the US, but this happens globally. Like we keep our populations very ignorant, very dumbed down to the point where, you know, we just said, you know, it's very possible to become a millionaire. You know, think about how many people who actually will go even further and be like, if you don't become that millionaire, it's your fault. You had the opportunity. There's a lot of us out there who say that, you know, and that's not the case for a lot of people, you know, like there are different obstacles for different people.
Right.
But
It's hard
I
to
think,
make judgment on someone
yeah,
when you
yeah,
haven't walked in their shoes.
you know, so those elite individuals, they also have the power to marginalize or impose disadvantages on people who are looked at as bad or as normal as well. So you and I can also participate involuntarily in these systems. So these systems of inequality, in these social constructs. So what I'm saying right here is that you and I, although I won't say that we are racist, I won't say that we are sexist, we can participate in those things. So we can involuntarily, unknowingly, you know, do things that harm other people.
Yeah, perpetuate these ideas that were
Exactly.
started from the top.
Yeah. So it's that whole bystander like effect. If you're not doing something to assist the problem or to get over that problem, you're probably actually like perpetuating it.
Right. This reminds me of a study my sister was actually telling me about. This recent study about how there it it concluded that there was like over 95 or 97% of women have experienced some form of sexual assault at least once in their lifetime.
Yeah.
And it's brought in light upon like some of the things that I wouldn't consider as like very aggressive or whatever.
Yeah.
But it's like subconscious behaviors that I wasn't necessarily aware of, but
Yeah.
now I have to be aware of because I don't want to come across the wrong way.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
like I haven't been able to put my perspective through the eyes of someone who's a woman, so I can't necessarily see what she perceives as like oppression, I guess you could say.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Definitely. And I think what was it, the NIH in the UK recently, this might be what she's referring to. I think it was 97.5% of women in the UK have experienced some form of sexual assault, which blew my mind. I was like,
Yeah, it's really sad to see that those numbers are so high.
yeah, you know, so like something's wrong.
Yeah,
Something's wrong.
I think we should
Definitely.
definitely identify what behaviors one should avoid to make it so they don't feel that way. Because I
Yeah.
think a lot of people like myself are unaware of what I do that may be interpreted the wrong way.
Yeah. And also, like, there are certain behaviors, and this is where like the whole intersectionality chapter comes in, that if my like I live in or on a street that is predominantly like Black. So things that some Black man might do to me, I might not take as sexual assault. However, maybe an Asian man or a white man who did it to me, I would. And that's where I think a lot of things also get very confusing.
Yeah, that. Are you referring to this the theory developed by the sociologist Patricia Collins, the intersection
Yes,
theory?
yes, yes.
Okay, I just ended up finishing chapter 11 notes, so I just went over that.
Oh, good,
There's
good.
like I went in that there's a lot of intersectionality between like race, class, gender, and sexual orientation and other attributes.
Yeah, yeah. So like it's interesting because I just came from the gym and one of my friends, she was just so after the gym, there's a guy who just approached her and was like, I don't want to be disrespectful or anything, but I just have to tell you, you look amazing. That's all I want to say, but you look amazing. And she was like, oh, that's so sweet,
Right.
And so, like, I bring that up because that's a situation where I actually think it's all right. That's not any form of sexual harassment, etc. However, again, different groups, like the way that they approach women are different, right? So one of the things she said, if that guy had come up to me and was like, "Hey, yo, hey, mama, like you look really," I would have taken it totally different.
Yeah.
So it's strange. It's strange. So what are some systems of inequality? So in the United States, people are treated as subordinates or inferior on the basis of their race, class, etc., all of these things. These individuals can also be subject to discriminatory treatment by others. So what we aim to do as sociologists is to analyze societies in terms of these social stratifications. Okay. And then your book will go into, what social stratification is, and how to interpret, these types of inequalities by social stratification. So it gives you an example of, I believe, this rock, right, where it's layered. And when it comes to these types of inequalities, they are also layered. So when we talk about racial inequality, we're talking about these racial groups and how they are organized in our society that may harm or treat people better than others in society. Okay. And again, these things aren't things that we like really speak of. Like nobody goes around in the world saying, at least I've never heard nobody going around saying, actually, maybe I have. Shit. Yeah. Indirectly, like old people should get off the street, like, and we have an idea of what's old,
Right.
And I think all of these have really come to the surface actually within the last couple of years.
Right. Like people are a little bit more explicit with what they're going to be like categorizing people in this like layering.
Yeah, definitely.
Right. I see what you're saying.
So when it comes, so we're gonna start. I think we're gonna start getting people in right now. So when we're talking about social stratification, we're referring to society as a categorization of its people into rankings of socioeconomic tiers based on factors like wealth, income, race, education. Remember Max Weber when it comes to social stratification. Okay, it doesn't just occur along economic lines. When we think about, like, oftentimes people take away from sociology the whole Marxist perspective. It's all the economy, and that's not necessarily, again, the economy isn't the base for everyone.
I disagree. Okay. I love economy.
Huh?
I disagree. Macroecon is everything to me.
Hey, Ethan.
It's my life.
So like when it comes to the economy, like I would say today, the economy affects everyone. If you haven't been affected either negatively or positively, I don't know where you've been. Especially I know Black people in the US today have been affected greatly during COVID, period. Like the amount of homes that are going up for sale and also foreclosed in my neighborhood is wild.
Yeah, it really is sad to see that Black people are receiving the heat a lot more than others.
Oh yeah.
We saw this in the Great Depression too, where people of color were significantly more impacted than other.
Yeah. And it's not to say that white, Asian, Hispanic aren't going through these things.
Yeah.
Definitely. But we do have these like invisible hierarchies in society. Okay. They're not so invisible anymore. But in the US, we focus on these 6. And those are the 6 I'm going to go over today. And I'm going to really go through them. It's not my intention to go through them, but you guys also have the video and you have the book. Okay. So the first one is economic inequality. Okay. Your book will talk about the caste system. And I actually think that we are getting closer to a caste system in the United States. Like we're really close to a caste system. I'm not going to say that we are a caste system. But I'm just going to jump over that. It's not to say that, it isn't important, but if you think of the caste system, really think of places like India that I believe I don't know if it got rid of its caste system. It may have gotten rid of it. But a caste system is one system in where like the class that you are born into, you are going to die in. Period. There is no economic mobility in a caste system.
I wonder why you think that current society like is going to start establishing this caste system. Like what makes you say that? I'm just curious.
Think of it's not to say that there isn't opportunity for economic success in the United States. There is, right?
Right.
But the way that our parents or my parents, I'll speak for myself, but the way that my parents were able to climb that economic ladder, like using education, job promotions, etc., those things are a lot harder for people in my generation. Education today doesn't mean that you are going to economically, like you are going to climb that economic ladder. It just doesn't. Okay, I'm not saying don't go to school. That's not what I'm saying. But it's definitely not the only way today. Like there was this study that I was looking at as to, what are some of the careers that young kids in high school now are like looking forward to like progressing in. The first one was YouTube. The first one was YouTube. I'm not saying that is wild, but it's like, that was not, like I grew up in a generation where the teachers were like, go to school. This is the way to climb. And then the recession hit and they were just like, oh, this is not
the box.
Like make sure you know what you're going to major in and things like that. It's just, so if you look at some of the studies on like first generation and second generation, specifically between the years of, I believe, 1999 and now, like those people are pretty much like stagnant. Yeah, you will get those individuals who make it, but it really doesn't necessarily. That's why we put class as an ascribed status in sociology now. Okay, it can be achieved. It definitely can be achieved, but there was a question on the exam, like Ivanka Trump and stuff like that. She's born into that.
Right.
So I'm not saying like you guys on this live right now aren't going to succeed. I believe you can succeed, definitely, but it's going to be hella hard.
I have a question. Do you think that there's more of a personal influence on that matter of success, or do you think there's more of a societal influence?
It depends. And that's where Pat Hill Collins comes in.
Okay.
It depends because like if you read Black Feminist Thought by Pat Hill Collins, or if you even read some of the current stuff by Bell Hooks, who's also mentioned in your textbook, they talk about how specifically when it comes to Black and brown children, we already know what's up in society by the time we're like 13 and 12. Like we already know how people are going to treat us. Okay. And that feeds into our aspirations. Like, what's the point of succeeding when I just know that my employer is probably going to give this person a promotion before me, but I have more credentials.
Right.
You know, so it's more of like, it is personal and it's not.
Yeah, it's a little bit more complex than just to say it's one or the other. It's probably entanglement of both.
Yeah, you know.
My opinion on it's so much of like windows of opportunity. It seems like white successful people are going to get a big window where they can make themselves climb, and everybody else is going to get this tiny window. We all get a window, and everyone can get a chance. But some people have this big of a window, and some people have this big of a window.
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
That's what I think.
Yeah.
I think the indoctrination process of this like perceptual set of racial inequality is definitely has an effect on one's ability to succeed. Like what you were saying is why, if I'm a person of color and I'm born into a society that discriminates against me, then why do I even aspire to be a doctor? Why do I even aspire to be anything?
Yeah, and that's where it kills a lot of people. Like that's where it kills a lot of people. Like I don't know if you guys went to like really diverse high schools, but like I definitely saw that at my high school.
Yeah.
Like I was just lucky that it's weird. It's so weird. It's hard to explain this, but I had good teachers that saw my potential and were just kind of like, you're doing good, keep doing it, but would also at the same time bash other students who looked like me. Don't be like him. And it's just kind of like, it's fucked up and good at the same time. It's good for me, but what does this say about this person who also looks like me?
Right.
You know, so like, yeah, there's that small window of opportunity. I had it and I took it and it worked for me. You know, but some people's small window of opportunity, like it gets smaller, like the more you're kind of like crushed.
We see it in the court systems too, especially.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
White guy with a DUI gets pre-trial like 17 times. We need more discovery. We weren't really sure.
Yeah.
Oh, that black kid was speeding and we found marijuana. Fucking done. Like next case.
It's wild. It's so wild. That's part of the reason why my sister, like they've decided just to stay in Luxembourg. She's actually going up for her citizenship test. I believe next month. Just kind of like over the US. Just over the US, just over it. And also it's for her children to be children for as long as they can. It's weird, but I don't want them, like the thing she said, it was like, I don't want them to think about race. I don't want them to think about like differences in class. Like, why kill them now? Like, why kill them? Like, keep that window of opportunity open. Like, keep it open for as long as possible.
Like, why put out the fire when it's only started?
Yeah. It's so sad. It's so sad. Yeah. It's so sad. But that's the caste system. But in the United States, we have a class system. So we're organized in this hierarchy where there is this upper class, this middle class, and this lower class. And in sociology, it actually goes into many more. So there's like working. So there's like middle, low, middle, high, high, low, high, high, high.
High.
Yeah.
High.
So there's like, you know, like sometimes people will ask me where I'm at, and specifically like right now, like I would classify myself as like middle lower. Okay, and that's based on, and I will upload that sheet up for you guys. You'll just kind of have to like calculate like income, your parents' income, and things like that. Right. But when it comes to economic inequality and the class system, our book just defines it as a system of inequality characterized by a vast difference in wealth and income possessed by families and individuals. So in the US today, wealth and income are unequally distributed. This distribution has become extremely clear as a result of the Great Recession that rocked our nation's economy in the last few years. When I typed this up, I was talking about the recession of 2000 and
wow.
Right before Obama, 2008.
Yeah.
Oh, so housing market?
Yeah, the housing market.
Okay. Yeah.
So that's when I was talking about it. So I think we even saw a greater one. So I still have to look at the data recently. Okay. In the US, a small proportion of the population has the means to the highest standard of living. So when I talk about higher standard of living, have access to some of the best like hospitals, best grocery stores or food sources, etc. Wealthy people receive the most and the best schooling, have better health, consume the most goods and services, etc. Okay. Also, many in the United States, many view the United States as a middle-class society, but this is a myth. You guys should be able to click on your version of this PowerPoint, hopefully, and just go in and read that. Sound good? And it's in, I forget which week I posted everything in, but I'll repeat it. Barely 10 years past the end of the Great Recession in 2009, the US economy is doing well, or was doing well, on several fronts. The labor market is on a job creating streak that has rung up more than 110 months straight of employment growth, a record for the post-World War II era. The unemployment rate as of November in 2019 was 3.5, a level not seen since the 1960s. So gains on the job market front were also reflected in the household incomes, which have rebounded in recent years. However, not all economic indicators appeared promising. Household incomes have grown only modestly in this century, and household wealth has not returned to its pre-recession level. Economic inequality, whether measured through gaps in income or wealth between richer and poorer households, continues to widen. Okay. So I'm definitely going to have to upload this slide once I get the data from 2020 and how it looks. So when 2019, that is Trump, right? So when Trump was talking about how, the economy is booming, he wasn't necessarily lying. Okay, he wasn't necessarily lying. Okay, so definitely, the unemployment gap was definitely shrinking. But when you think of jobs, when people think of careers, if I ask you guys this question, what is a career to you? What are you guys going to say? What is a career?
Somewhere you can move up and continue to grow.
Somewhere where you can move up, continue to grow. What else?
Opportunity for an advancement, like being able to support your family.
Being able to support your family, opportunities for advancement. What else?
Fucking buying a house.
Being able to buy a house. One of the things that I personally look for, not that I'm looking for a job or anything like that, but when I was on the job market, I needed certain benefits or I wasn't going to probably stick with that job. So some of the things that I looked for, especially when applying to become a professor, was dental, definitely need that. Health insurance, definitely need that. I also needed certain types of time off, especially when it came to like bereavement and things like that, just because my parents are getting older, my grandpa and grandma definitely gonna pass, things like that. Also like types of life insurance, etc. Right? So when Trump was talking about the economy is booming, definitely, right? People are becoming employed. But if you actually look at the data, and I don't have it in the slide, look at the top types of jobs that people were actually jumping into. A lot of them I would describe as I mean no disrespect when I describe it like this, but kind of Uberish type jobs. Okay, so when I say Uberish type jobs, like if you fall down sick, there's no sick leave. There's no like, you're screwed. Yeah. Okay, and that's what I mean by Uberish type. Okay, so definitely, yeah, people are employed, people are working, and that is good. That is good. But people are working without benefits, without sick leave, without all of these things that your parents, maybe even you have. Okay, is that good? Is that bad? That is subjective.
Professor, I believe that there was like a movement against at least for the specific case of Uber, the company. I think there was a movement against them demanding that the workers receive rights. Is that correct?
Yeah. I mean, if I was the CEO of Uber, like, I don't want to sound like a bitch. Okay. But if I was the CEO of Uber, like, what rights? Like, what rights?
Right.
Like, I feel bad saying that, but like, there's a reason why these huge corporations don't want people to unionize, don't want people to have these certain rights, and it's not that they can't afford it. They can, definitely, but like,
hinders their growth.
Yeah.
And that's all they care about.
I mean, they're still trying to unionize, what's it called? Prime, Amazon. I don't think that's ever going to happen.
No.
It can't. Like,
who cares?
It can. It can. I'm a sociologist. It can, right? It can. But, like, somewhere down that like Amazon chain, somebody's going to pay for it.
Right.
And it's probably going to be us, the consumers.
Right.
So definitely, like, during COVID, should they have been getting, like, what is that? My sister got it when she was a nurse, because they were the ones allowed to go out, and it's something, I forget what it is. But it's just in case you get sick on the job. Do you guys know what I'm talking about?
Like a benefit?
Yeah,
it's like a certain type of.
You get paid for if you get sick and leave.
Like if you caught COVID.
Yeah.
While delivering packages, but they didn't get that. But I know nurses got it.
Yeah, it's like the frontline workers if they were the ones.
Yeah, and Bezos at the time was like, no.
They were covered.
In fact, we paid for it.
Right.
We paid for it. I don't know if any of you guys remember or if any of you have Amazon, but it was like they had for a while this donation thing on their site. Do you want to chip in? And like, donate $1.
Sell that fucking stock, Jeff. Sell that stock.
There's don't want to chip in.
And like the internet service provider companies, like Xfinity was putting out ads like, feel bad for us. You guys are using the internet more because you're inside. You guys feel like paying, hey, that unlimited plan doesn't work out for us anymore. Why don't you just pay us more money because it's getting hard out here for us? It's like, we don't care. Your job.
Yeah, you shouldn't.
It's so wild. It was so, because even I was like, whoa, like, we were just talking about this guy becoming a billionaire, and
that's Trump's America for you.
And I feel like nobody's, I felt like nobody, I don't know if anybody caught, like, I was like, why are all these companies asking for donations? Like,
when did you help us out?
Like, for real.
They're okay with trading risk for profit when they're making profit. But now when they face the consequences of the risk, they're like, oh, any hands? Hello?
Yeah, I had an optimistic.
The risk is not working for us right now. We need some help.
Yeah.
That's the whole deal we made, is you take all the risk and then you pay us nothing. And then now what?
Yeah, it's crazy. It's just wild. It was wild. Your book will go into the definition of class, what is class, etc. And so one of the ways I think specifically today that we're able to move on, and this has been some talk in the media today, is moving up the class system, specifically when it comes to marriage. Typically, one of the things I will say is that I'm not going to say you will, but you're more likely to marry somebody within your kind of like economic bracket. But this is a way to move up the class system. So in class systems, people have the option to form exogamous marriage unions. So marriages from different social categories and backgrounds. Marriage to a partner from the same social background is called an endogamous union. Okay, so it's highly unlikely that I'll marry somebody who is like outside of my social. When I say social category, I'm talking about like at the economy right now, so economic. So it's highly unlikely that I'll marry somebody outside of that, but it can happen. It definitely can happen. And I do think so. One of my friends is actually writing a paper, and she's hoping to get it published on, because I think, again, COVID, blessing and a curse at the same time. But I think social media has definitely opened up, being able to communicate like this has opened up ways to meet people from all around the world, from all social backgrounds.
Yeah.
And I think we'll see people marrying definitely outside more so.
Yeah.
More so.
Right. I think that social media definitely allows for a global forum to develop in which there will be a lot more diversification.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, and all types of, and all types. Right. So you guys had, Prince William and Kate Middleton. You guys had a Flipgrid if you chose to do it. I think I gave you the link to the 2 hour on CBS, the documentary. But she is an example of an exogamous marriage, as well as the brother who's dealing with his own issue, Meghan and Harry. So it is possible, etc. So the perspective. So again, your lenses are, you got to know them like the back of your hand. So how would a functionalist look at economic inequality? The functionalist is going to say that it's beneficial to society. Like having these hierarchies, having a higher, a middle, a lower class is beneficial. Okay. Different aspects of society exist because they specifically serve a purpose. So people who are in the working class serve a specific purpose. People who are in the middle, people who are in the higher classes serve a purpose. So here's an example from an old text that I used to use. It's not bad that a CEO gets paid $400,000 a day. Different jobs, different pay, different rewards. This keeps people striving for more and bettering themselves. These highly rewarded positions are the most beneficial for society anyways. It is important that those who are skilled take those most rewarded positions because they can do those jobs. Therefore, maintaining an ongoing system of economic inequality is necessary and inevitable. What do you guys think about that, the functionalist perspective? Do we need these hierarchies?
Well, I don't know. I think that this hierarchy doesn't necessarily exist in all job like opportunities. Like if we look at a YouTuber who's making millions of dollars, and then we look at like a teacher who's making maybe 50K a year, it really I don't know if it necessarily reflects the importance of what our society places like its values on, or if it's just that our ability to succeed isn't necessarily placed with our values.
Okay.
No, I think the YouTube example is a good one. So I was kind of a loser growing up. I watched a lot of YouTube. I followed people like way too hard, and so I remember there was this whole time like when people started swearing YouTube videos, and YouTube was like, "Whoa, we can't advertise if you're swearing." And so there's people that were making lots of money on YouTube just started making nothing.
Yeah.
And so like in the way they were their own boss, but they also had to take that risk. My mom, on the other hand, was a teacher. Going through the recession, no problem. She's a job. She's got the government. She still had her job. She still got paid, and everything worked out. So when we face crises, at some positions you get absolutely slammed. Like that YouTuber can't now go, "Hey, does anyone want to hire me? I used to make videos about Nerf guns, and now hire me as a whatever." No, you're not getting a job anywhere. You have no money. You have no education, and your life's over. But on the other hand, it's like, oh, you used to be making all this money. So is it worth it? Is it a good career choice? Well, it depends on who you're asking and when you're asking.
Yeah.
What about like people like Tom Brady too, who are like just play football for their life and make millions of dollars. Like when it comes to objective like functioning in society, a football player doesn't really serve much purpose. I mean, I'm not trying to like.
Well, okay, no, I agree with you guys. I completely agree with you guys. But again, it's weird because we can't control, this hierarchy, whether or not we wanted to dismantle it or not, right? Because during COVID, we're still dealing with COVID. Like if you think about the businesses or the careers they tried to open up first, football, the NFL was one of those. Yeah. So we might think that, this guy serves actually no purpose. Yeah. But our president at the time, said we needed it. And people agreed with him.
It doesn't make any sense. I don't know.
It really doesn't. That's why I feel like this whole year I was in the toilet. I think that's probably why I fell into a depression. I was like, what the fuck is going on? It doesn't.
I thought that was really funny. I know last semester it ended off, we were in this class and you were like, what's going on with the whole essential thing? Because everyone would socially agree this is what's essential. And it's like, don't go outside if you just want to, smoke a cigarette. But I'm going to go outside and walk my dog, and you better not look at me twice. Yeah. It's like, well, what happened? Like, yeah. Well, my dog would get depressed, okay? My dog would get depressed, and he would get fat, so these are my reasons. But you can't do whatever you want to do because I can't see your reasons.
Yeah.
That's it.
It's so wild. So wild. Because I do think that there are a lot of people who, will think about these things, right? Like that NFL player, that YouTuber, there are jobs that are essential, these teachers, these grocery store workers, these mail carriers, these doctors, these nurses. But then when it comes to politics and government policies and the whole reopening process, we were all just like, what? Okay, so the NBA gets to go back, but nope. It was just weird. It was weird to me. That's the functionalist perspective. So inequality is good. It's beneficial. Okay. The conflict perspective, economic inequality is not good. It's dysfunctional. It's harmful. It only benefits some people and not all of society. So economic stratification, this hierarchy, will only perpetuate inequality. So an example, again, this perspective would emphasize the importance of looking at power, privilege, and capitalism. In the United States, ownership of society's means of production is typically in the private hands of a small proportion of the population. This segment of the population makes the big decisions as to who, how, and where people will be hired. They keep the wages low and keep the profits up and the incomes of the top execs up. Inequality is fostered by capitalism, not capitalism, and largely benefits those who disproportionately receive the benefits, not you. What do we think about this?
No. Unminimize. There we go. Well, I guess it's just the other side of the coin, right? In the same way, you have the YouTubers and the football players that make millions of dollars and do super well, or the CEOs that make millions of dollars and do super well. You also see, sticking with the entertainer side, people who are trying to make it. So this favorite show I like to watch on Netflix is about the football players and the basketball players that don't make it, right? Yeah. And they're like, oh yeah, I cheated through all my classes and everything, but now I'm playing at JUCO and I'm 26 and I have a kid. And it's like, oh, so you could have been a superstar making millions of dollars and we all would have hated you, but now you have nothing and you have a child you have to pay for and all this stuff, and it's that flip side. So
yeah,
on one hand, yeah, there's clear inequality, but it's also that risk management. So
yeah,
people are definitely being hindered by it.
Definitely, this perspective I agree with more so than the functionalist perspective. If you think of your again, your major corporations, your Walmarts, your Amazons, You know, definitely Walmart specifically is infamous for paying its employees either minimum wage or below the minimum wage. And most of their employees also have to go on public assistance, some form of public assistance.
Yeah.
You know?
I think that the conflict perspective is definitely a more accurate reflection on capitalism than the functionalist. I think the functionalist is an ideal in some ways, because I don't necessarily agree with the functionalist ideal.
Well, you know, the one thing that and I don't mean to cut you off. One thing that I feel like if I were ever to like really, really make it, like really, really like economically, like I'm a billionaire. Socially, I'm a billionaire. Politically, I'm a billionaire. You know, like I actually feel like, you know how they say like money can change people? I actually think that, I do think that that happens. I do think that that happens. You know, so I do, you know, I don't know what it even feels like to have that crazy or disgusting amount of money, but I do think that I just said, you know, like if I were, you know, Jeff Bezos, like why would you need a union? Like you don't need a union.
Right.
You know, like I probably you want to keep what you're having. You want to sustain what you're making and what you're bringing in. So why am I even going to cut out of my check?
Yeah.
I feel bad saying that. I feel bad saying that, and I hope if I ever make it, I wouldn't be like that. But I probably would.
I think this comes down to like whether humans are inherently good or evil, like whether they're born in like for selflessness or whether they're born out of selfishness.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know.
I think honestly, I think we are. This is my opinion. I agree with Emil. If you ever read any of his works, besides like, if you read things like Suicide by Emil Durkheim and things like that, I think we are born bad. I think we are born bad.
Interesting.
I think we are. I think we learn, and I think we're not just born bad. I think we're, I don't know.
Well, I think we're in America. It's just who we are. You know, it's that greedy nature is what defines us.
Yeah.
We all want to be like nice, but at the end of the day, across all of our behaviors, like everybody, it's all. At the end of the day, it's what can I do to climb up? What can I do to put myself ahead of other people? The general consensus really isn't what can we do to make everybody better. Even liberals and far left, like myself and my family, we want to have this nice social institution as long as I'm on top.
Yeah.
Right?
As
long as I'm up here, I'm okay with it helping everybody else up. But you know, it's that our culture is I need the nice car, I need a nice shoes.
And that's the word. I think it's the culture that we're like. I think it's
So we need to be climbing over each other, and then how are you going to say that we're all going to be good if all you want is to be better?
Yeah.
I think that one thing we should be aware of though is that I was looking at the study. I work at a convenience store, and I was ranting to my friends about how like I only run into assholes, and like people are jerks. And he showed me the study where like the northeastern region of the United States is notoriously known for like people who are very like out for them, like out to get everyone else, like they're only looking for their own benefit. So I think that could in some way form our perspective of humanity as a whole.
True.
So I would be curious to see what other people's lives are outside of the northeastern region, perhaps maybe in California or like the South. Or I'm just curious to see if they have the same opinion or not.
It sounds crazy, but when you just telling us like that, like I just thought about the Britney Spears documentary on Hulu. I don't know if any of you guys saw that.
Yeah,
but after she made it, she went back to her little hometown in Louisiana.
$2,000.
Yo, like
there you go.
What happened?
That would never cross my mind. I don't think that would ever cross my mind.
I'm not. What did Britney Spears do?
Like she went back to her town and gave like every single resident in her town $1,000.
She walked
I
door to
think acts
door,
like those,
like went knocked on your door, and like,
Yeah.
here's money.
I think it depends on the person. I don't think it's necessarily all humans are evil or all humans are nice. It just depends, and like it also depends on our upbringing too.
Yeah, definitely. Socialization. Definitely. And
Yeah.
the last perspective, symbolic interactionism. Here, people's appearance, so think of symbols and their meaning, so actual appearance, and we're relating this to the class system, reflects their perceived social standing. So my appearance to somebody is going to, like, they're going to be able to read off of me my social standing. So they can read it from housing, from clothing, from the type of transportation that I'm driving or taking will indicate social status, as do hairstyles, taste in accessories, and personal style. How does your social standing, or can your social standing, affect your everyday interactions? If they can, right, they can also influence and affect your social class. You know, one of the things I had to learn after coming back from my master's program was how to dress for an interview as a professor.
Code switch.
You know, like it's just, you know, they told me you can't wear this, you can't wear this, you got to do your hair like this. They're not going to hire you, like, etc.
Yeah, if you were a lawyer and you walked into the court and you had your hair like that,
oh no,
and it's like, wait a second, sorry, white guy, my hair doesn't look like that. It's like they don't care. That's it. You have to wear the nice shoes. You have to wear this stuff.
Yeah.
And they think that hair is like a suggestion of like they don't care. They're not taking it seriously, and they're not respecting the honor. My brother's studying at Suffolk Law right now, and he had a big fight with his teacher because the teacher was talking about hairstyles and uniforms and stuff like that. And he brought up a case where a black woman was a lawyer and she was mistaken for a criminal.
Yeah.
And the judge refused to believe that she was like the actual lawyer because she had her hair in braids or something. I don't remember.
It's wild. It's wild, but you know, those other two perspectives we just went over. Symbolic interactionism is, again, it's more micro. It hits more it hits more home. You know, this is what we feel most of the time. So imagine, you know, like just all of us getting up right now and walking into a high-end retail store. You know, like, would the employees look at us as if we were like lost? Or would they actually like help us out? Okay. So symbolic interactionism, I'll always say that this one, again, it's the micro perspective. The other ones are macro. But this is the one that I think influence, like this is the lens that I try to look at every day. Okay. Again, context matters here, etc. Whereas with the conflict and the functionalist perspective, again, it's more macro. You're usually talking about a larger number of people, etc. Keep those in mind, okay? The next one is racial inequality. So think about how those perspectives just discussed class inequality. So racial inequality is a system of inequality in which members of one race are thought of and treated as less worthy than members of another. This will result in discrimination and exploitation. But what is race? Your chapters will go over race. We'll go over ethnicity, etc. Okay, so race, again, is a social construct, and I'm recording this, so I'll just put that up. But it's a social construct. It's a man-made term. It can change, etc. Race specifically is based on real or perceived, and again, oftentimes perceived biological differences between groups of people. Regardless of their race, humans, regardless of their race, are 99.9% genetically identical. However, still to this day, we use race to classify people. Okay, so there is this documentary. It's called The Power of an Illusion. You could probably catch it on YouTube. It's 3 parts, but the one that you would want to see is the one with the professor who goes around the classroom swabbing every student's mouth. But before he actually analyzes their genetic makeup, he asked all the students, who do you think you have more in common with racially in this class? So all the white kids are like this white person, all the black kids are like this black person, all the Hispanic kids are like this Hispanic person. But at the end, after analyzing, we find out that people in different racial categories have more genetically identical matches in, I forget, I think they're called alleles. I'm not a biologist, but more genetically matching alleles with people like outside of their racial category than within their racial category.
What was the name of that?
It's called Race, the Power of an Illusion. And it comes in 3 parts. So it's not the one that is talking about how people who are imprisoned have, family members, and it becomes this generational thing. It's the one with the classroom.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm curious to check that out.
Yeah, definitely. Okay. And then ethnicity is also a socially defined category. It's based on practices, values, and beliefs of a group. So I give you an example here of the Amish and Jewish people. Okay, these are ethnic groups. However, I did have a student who was Jewish and said that Jewish people was a race. And I was like, that's why people hurt Jews in the past. And like, that's not the way we should be looking at it. But he was persistent. And I was like, you can view it that way. But
I think what they're referring to is Ashkenazi Jewish is considered an ethnicity, but the actual religion, like being Jewish, is just a religion. But people can be ethnically Jewish, but like not practice.
Okay. Thank you, Maeve. Wait, is Maeve your real name?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Maeve. Sorry. I know somebody was like, this is not my real name. So, okay.
Yeah, it's okay.
So definitely, so I gave you the example, and thank you for that. Amish and Jewish people as an ethnic group. Okay. So again, ethnicity is socially defined category based on practices, values, and a belief of a group. Okay. So sociologists see race and ethnicity as social constructs because race isn't based on biology. For us, for instance, we cannot test DNA to determine race. I know it's become very popular to do the little online
23andMe.
The DNA, like, I want to figure out where I'm from.
Yeah, 23andMe.
Yeah. So and students have brought that up, especially last semester. So what we can say is that there are certain groups from around the world, and this is where biology and sociology can somewhat mix, is that there are people from different regions that will have certain amount of alleles. I'm not a biologist, but I've been reading up on this stuff from different regions of the world. And that's how we get that, but still like the actual skin color, like is not something we can actually test for. Okay. So racial categories will change over time, especially in the US history. We've seen racial categories change over time. Racial categories never have firm boundaries. This used to be on Netflix. It was a movie called Skin based on she wasn't American, but it was based on a girl who was in South Africa. It's factual. But how they had to, like, one year she would be classified as white, the next year she'd be classified as black, and it was because they used to do the brown paper bag test and the pencil test. So if the pencil like stayed in your hair, then you were black. If it fell out, you were white. But race, the category, specifically how people classified race in South Africa, specifically here in America, has changed over time. We had a period where we were classifying American Indians, and I think it was American Indians on reses after they've completed something. As white, we've seen specifically in 2010 how Hispanic is no longer a racial category. Now, like if you are Spanish speaking, you can classify as white or as Black. So you'll oftentimes see white of Hispanic origin, Black of Hispanic origin. Okay, so no longer, it's hard because I still sometimes use Hispanic as a racial category, but it's not. And Hispanic just means Spanish speaking, which is ethnicity.
Right.
Okay.
This kind of reminds me of the Rwandan weapon. I remember in high school, we watched this documentary about the Rwandan genocide.
Yeah.
And like differentiated people like Hutus and Tutsis by like the measurements of their nose and like the color of their skin, like how Black someone was. And I was just thinking, I was like, why? What's the reason to that?
It's it's crazy, but a lot of these things still exist today. Like, and I'm specific, like I don't live anywhere but the US. So this stuff exists specifically in different ethnic groups here in the US. So like you'll definitely see it within the Black community. So not only like do we have like racial issues outside of us, like we deal with and that would be like a colorism thing within our own community.
Yeah.
You know? So prejudice and discrimination, hopefully you guys already know what this stuff is. Prejudice, again, it's just a thought process. It's a biased way of thinking. It's usually applied to all members of society. It's the beliefs, the thoughts, the feelings, and attitude about a group. And it's unlikely to change regardless of evidence against it. All sociologists will tell you it is hard to change someone's mind who is prejudiced. It's hard to even give them information once they're like firm in that prejudice. Okay. Discrimination, this is the action. Okay. So it's unequal treatment of individuals because of their social group. It usually is motivated by prejudice. Okay. So discrimination is the action. We all can do this. Okay. That's part of the reason why I wanted people to like see this or people to log on to this. So, one of the things that happened over the weekend, last week, the ATL shooting. Okay, one of the discussions that are going on right now, and let me just actually get to the racism first, and then we'll get to it. Okay, so personal racism and institutional racism. In sociology, we always it's not that we don't care, but it's hard to label someone as a racist. We throw it around all the time in media, period. Okay. But I find it very hard. I'll just speak for myself to label somebody racist. Okay. I like to use the term specifically. I don't want the term to lose its meaning. Okay. But personal racism is the racial prejudice or discrimination expressed by individuals or small groups of people. So some examples will include face-to-face or covert actions towards a person that intentionally express prejudice, hate, or bias towards that race. Okay. So a great example of personal racism, and it can also be expanded to institutional racism, is Dylan Roof. The reason why I say Dylan Roof is because he left the manifesto and he said he was racist. Like, if you say you're racist, I'm gonna take it like that. Like, you know better than me. That's personal racism. Okay. So, and he also expressed that prejudice.
Does it have to be intentional?
That hate. Huh?
Does it have to be intentional? Can you unintentionally be racist and still be described?
Yes. Yeah. Yes. And everybody can do that.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and Dylan Roof also expressed it, went into a church and shot, I believe, like nine or eight people. Okay. So that's personal racism. Institutional racism, this is the one that sociologists, okay, this is the one that we should focus on. Okay. Institutional racism is racial prejudice or discrimination embedded in the routine functions and fabric of societal institutions. We went over all of the institutions. Okay. Family, religion, education, economy, the state, work, peers. We can even include media and the criminal justice system. Okay. These are, again, prejudice and discrimination embedded in the routine functions and fabric of societal institutions. So some examples include school disciplinary policies, which students of color are punished at much higher rates than their white counterparts. I live in Malden. Okay, Malden has a school, not Malden Catholic, not the Chevres. Damn, it's a private school. Mystic Valley Regional. I think it's Mystic Valley Regional. 2 years ago, they had still implemented a policy that, again, punished Black students at a higher rate, and it was based on their hair. Okay, it needed to be essentially like straightened. So you either had to have like some chemical process in your hair, or it'd be blow dried straight. Okay. Or you'd get like detention or whatever. Okay. And it wasn't until like a girl, I believe she wore like just a puff, and she got like either detention or suspended for a while, and it blew up in the news. Okay, so that's an example of institutional racism, policies that affect certain individuals at a higher rate than others. Okay, and the criminal justice system is another example. However, I think everyone's getting swallowed up by the criminal justice system now. I think it's out of control. I do think it's out of control. And within many employment sectors in which day-to-day operations, as well as hiring and firing practices, can significantly disadvantage workers of color. Okay. Institutional racism, and the reason why we say, like I say, focus on this one is because just because, you know, the civil rights movement, you know, of the 1960s, the women's rights movements of the 1960s, like they were successful in some sense, doesn't mean racism is gone. Doesn't mean sexism, we'll just incorporate like gender in this as well. Doesn't mean sexism is gone, okay? The individual can change, like we believe that in sociology. That's why the personal racism, like, can a racist person change? Yeah, I do think a racist person can change, you know, but the institutions are the ones that are having problems changing. Okay, because specifically policies. Okay, so do we get the difference between that? We can all participate in these things. I can be biased. I could be prejudiced. I could be discriminatory, you know, and I can also perpetuate racism. Okay, can anybody give me an example of how someone, you can use me, how I can perpetuate it?
Like when you speak bluntly, a lot of people take that as like a stereotype of like Black women. So they're like, oh, she's just acting Black right now. Instead of like, no.
Okay, okay, definitely. Yeah. I do have to control it depends on the population I'm speaking with.
Yeah.
You know, like you guys are students and I hope none of you are taking offense right now, but I, you know, like I cussed a couple of times, but I want you to get this. Like, I want you to get it, you know, like, but do you think I could actually like, unless I was upset and they threw me out of character, I probably couldn't talk to the president of the college like this.
Yeah.
Okay. Right. You had your hand up, Tyler, or maybe?
So I had an example for institutional racism, but were you specifically referring for examples for personal racism?
Say it again.
Were you asking for examples for personal racism or institutional?
Either or. I just want to make sure you guys get it.
Okay, because I remember reading. I had an example for I don't know where it is on the scale, like on this little spectrum, but I read this study that was talking about how like there was 2 job applications. Mm-hmm. One labeled as Joe and one labeled as Jose.
Yeah.
Like they were the same exact thing, same accolades, everything. Mm-hmm. And the individual who's labeled as Joe was more likely to get hired than a person named Jose, which kind of shows, I don't know whether it would reflect on the personal racism of the person who was like the employer, or if it's an institutionalized racism of this idea.
You could say it could be both, because if we take it, like, if we look at it in a micro, just look at it, the job, the employer who's hiring the employee, that's personal, right? But this stuff happens on a large spectrum. Like, it's not just this guy who's doing it.
Right.
You know, like when you say Jose, all of us in this chat right now have like an image of a Jose. You know? So like we are like, and imagine if all of us were like, okay, Jose Joe, and we all pick Joe. It's too big. It's a public issue. It's institutional.
Right.
Yeah.
I was trying to figure out whether it's like one or the other, but I could see that there's a lot of intermeshing. Like they overlap a lot of the time.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, the name thing happened to my grandpa. He's from Egypt and he came to America in the 60s, and he had to change his name because he wasn't getting any like job offers because his name was Iolani, and when like it was the 60s and they see someone on an application named Iolani from Egypt, they aren't going to hire him. But if he says he's like John living in Massachusetts, then he'll get hired.
Definitely.
So yeah,
definitely. And also, so you know, the world's crazy. The Colorado shooting. Colorado has had so many mass shootings. But the Colorado shooting. But before the guy's name was released, right? I think my sister showed me the picture and I was like, oh, that's simply just like a white guy. Like he's probably just going to get off, etc. But I think that they're going to treat this exactly like they treated the Boston bombing. And because the guy's name is like Ahmed, something Alisa. And I believe he is, I know he's from an one of the Arabic countries.
Right.
But if you remember the Tsarnaev brothers, again, race, it's based on real or perceived biological differences. When I talk about race, I'm simply just talking about this. Like I'm simply just talking about this. And that the 21 is Atlanta. I forget how old this guy is.
He was like somewhere between 22 and 19.
This guy, so to me, if we're talking about race just being perceived, he's white, right? But his name causes some kind of like, and that's why we say race is a social construct. His name allows him to disassociate from that.
Yeah, it's like it screws up the identity of what we form around them.
Yeah. You know, so like, again, I'm the type of person who is just kind of, I'm always like, keep the same energy. You told us these definitions, keep the same energy. You know, like, and if we're going to say, if you always want to portray things in a racial light, like what makes this guy different? It's his name is his name is going to allow him to escape that.
What is your, what do you, I don't know how to not sound confrontational when I ask this, but whatever. What are you suggesting when you think that the Boston bombing was like institutionalized racism? Like what part specifically?
No, I'm not saying that it was institutionalized racism.
Oh, okay.
I'm not. It's just like the way that they're going to treat this case, the Colorado one, I think is going to be the same way. Like these kids, this 18-year-old, and I think his brother was 22, the Boston bombing brothers. There were kids that grew up in Cambridge, Massachusetts, like like every other kid in Cambridge, Massachusetts. Like, but it's, how do I explain it? I feel like if you have the white skin color and an ethnic name, you almost get screwed over, just like your skin can't save you from this. Like your skin can't save you from this. It's your name instantly makes you a person of color. It's so weird. Like the Tsarnaev brothers. Like I'm looking, like I would be looking at a picture and I'd be like, yo, like they're white.
Yeah.
But white never gets associated around their name at all.
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that the name has more of a significant impact on one's identity than skin color?
So I won't get to intersectionality today, but for certain people, yes. Yes.
Interesting.
Definitely. Like you said, Jose.
Yeah, and it made
like like for some people, like for us, like it just goes like we're talking about somebody who's Hispanic speaking, etc. Right? But again, a year can change a lot, and I hate saying it because if you had asked me before Trump was elected if people can change overnight, I'd say no. But Trump was able to change things in society in a short 4 years. And I'm not saying he started these things, but he was able to allow these things to
perpetuate,
to come out. Just like be free to say whatever you want to say.
Yeah, he was
however you want to say. Don't be a snowflake. Like he like, and literally like people are so bold.
Yeah.
Like
subliminal racism, like just stopped being. People were just like, "Hey, listen, the president's doing it. These guys are doing it. I'm gonna do it. This guy I work with, only when we have a black waiter working with us, wears his Blue Lives Matters hat. Only when she's working. And it's just like, now I feel comfortable. Now I'm gonna throw that hat on. It's like,
so
This
level of arrogance.
It's so strange because I broke up with my ex because he was a police officer, and like all of a sudden like the Blue Lives Matter flag came out, like his truck got like start putting stickers on his truck, and I'm just like, I can't ride in this. I can't ride with you.
I can't be seen in that.
It's just like because you start questioning everything that you've ever gone through.
Yeah.
Like, what is your real, like, what do you really feel? And it was like, okay, like I thought you really felt, this way. And I'm not saying like I hold any bad like feelings or anything, like, because we ended cordially. But like, if you feel this way about this group of people, like, then how do you see me really? Like, were you just suppressing all of this stuff, etc.?
Yeah, you start forming a perceptual set around them.
Yeah. Were you censored around me? Like it's so crazy, but like so I think that people can change overnight. So just like they can change like for the worse overnight, I do think that they can change. Like if you've ever seen somebody do something discriminatory and then just sit back and be like, what the fuck did I just do?
Yeah.
Like the prejudiced person just stays at the prejudice level. So everything's all here. Like, fuck you, like that. They never act on it. That's why it's hard to change. But if you act on it and you feel some form of remorse, like, that's good. That's actually really good. So do you get the difference between personal and institutional though?
Yeah.
So just think, and we don't like, let's do this last one. And I want you to also do these with gender and age in your head. What do you think a functionalist would say about racism in this hierarchy of race that we have in the United States?
I actually remember reading something in the textbook. It was saying, I forget where the notes are. It basically said, so in the textbook, it said, in the view of functionalism, racial and ethnic inequalities must have served an important function in order to exist as long as they have.
Yeah.
So, like this systematic racism, I don't agree with it personally. But I'm just saying what it's. I'm just being a delivery guy here with the message.
Yeah.
He's the individual who holds this belief as a functionalist is basically saying that racism and other forms of like institutionalized oppression had to serve an important function in society in order to perpetuate into like 2021.
Agreed. Right. So I don't agree with that perspective.
Right.
But people who would look at things through that lens definitely do agree. Okay. These, certain races, hold, their spot in this tier because they serve, purposes, think about, what's an example? Usually if you'll,
I think functionalists would probably bring up a point of like, what do they call when you get accepted to college and they hold spots for people of color? What is that called?
The affirmative action.
I'm generally a functionalist on these topics, obviously not, but like, so I find it a bit easier to draft the arguments, say that what you will about myself, whatever. I think a lot of it's like they'll cherry pick these opportunities and be like, oh, you're black and you have the systemic issue, but that served its function. Now here you go. I gave you this ladder to climb. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, the system gave you this ladder to get in. Be grateful for that, right? That's how the system corrected itself. It was with affirmative action.
So this gives me a good example, very good example, and that triggered this example in my head. So Long Island, New York, there's this movie called Fence Line. Fence Line. I'm trying to but it's about Long Island, New York, and how, how people in general are always hiring contractors to work on their houses and things like that. And sometimes the people that they're hiring hire outside workers that sometimes are undocumented to work for them. Okay. So in Fence Line, specifically in Long Island, there was an influx of undocumented workers who were working on homes. And the reason the community got so upset was because temporarily these people would stay in homes of people that, these undocumented workers knew, and they didn't like it. So what happened was that the people of Long Island were able to get a policy through that totally eliminated undocumented workers from working on homes in that area. And they eventually got upset because they were just kind of like, who's gonna work on our roofs? Who's gonna do all of this stuff? Like, these are the people that we need. It's so weird, but like, these individuals were like, they're good for this. They're really good for this.
Right.
But as long as they don't live in our community, we're all right. Just, they're good for this though.
That's so stupid.
As long as they don't want to grow, as long as they don't want to have any aspirations, we're great putting them right here. Don't move. Stay right here your entire life, your generations. Don't care.
It's so crazy, but it's like there are these individuals out there, who's just kind of like, yeah, they're good for this. Like, let's fix this policy because we need them working on our homes. But let's also amend it by saying that they can't live here.
They don't get any managerial jobs. Can't have that. Yeah.
It's wild. It's wild. But that's an example. The conflict perspective, again, the opposite side of the coin. They're going to say that it's dysfunctional. It only benefits certain members, certain people, or certain groups of people. And then the symbolic interactionist perspective, again, more micro, right? Does your race hinder where you can go, what you can do, where you sleep, where you eat, your medical services, etc.? Get it?
Yeah.
Can I leave it there for now? Okay, so I hope you guys don't mind me. I'm going to share this with the class. I'm actually going to eat something and probably hop on around 3 again. If you choose to join me, you join me, but I just got to get these videos out so I can upload this specific Flipgrid I want to upload to the class. Sound good?
Yep.
Okay, so I'll see you guys later. Thank you, and I'm going to upload this.
Professor, I have a couple of questions with this upcoming week. So on Friday, we have to take chapter 11, 12, and 9 quizzes.
So there are how many quizzes offered right now? There are 2. There's just 2. They're not on the chapters. They're on the readings.
Oh, okay. I already did those quizzes, so then I'm just.
So you're all set. And honestly, like, so you'll notice that the quizzes, they will say, I write in that they're due on Friday. They're actually open until Sunday night.
Right.
So like, due on Friday, but there were just a couple of students who worked during the week.
Yeah.
So I'm just keeping them open until Sundays.
So is it next week that we're gonna have the exam then?
I'm gonna see what we can do this week. If not, I'm just going to extend this week out, and then you'll have the exam the next week.
Yeah, sorry, I just didn't know how to follow it because I was looking at the syllabus and there was a little bit of like conflict as to.
Yeah. So I'm probably gonna update the syllabus.
Okay.
Seeing what we can get done this week.
Yeah, no worries.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Professor.
No problem. Bye, guys. Have a good one. Or any other questions? Or you guys good?
I want to talk to you privately for like 5 seconds.
Okay.
That's all.
So Tyler, Maeve, Gray, you guys good?
So.
Okay. Peace out. Let me just stop recording this.